5.5 in pre-calculus textbook, we're doing 11 to 71 odds. This first group wants us to find all solutions. Basically, that means they want us to use the plus 2 pi n or plus pi n, whatever is necessary. So we want to find all solutions. So I have sine of x equaling radical 3 over 2. To get rid of a sine, you take the arc sine. If you do it to one side, you have to do it to both sides. Sine and arc sine eliminate each other. So you're looking for the angle whose sine is radical 3 over 2. Look on your trig table. What angle sine is radical 3 over 2? Pi over 3? Pi over sine of pi over 4 is radical 2 over 2. This is radical 3 over 2. Now, is there any other place where the sine or the y is positive? I had pi over 3, and I knew that it was positive here. And over here, I need the sine to be positive. This is negative positive, and that would be 2/3, right? So you have x equals pi over 3, and you have x equals 2 pi over 3. Always solve them on the interval from 0 to 2 pi first. Then adjust. Add 1 complete revolution times n. Add 1 complete revolution times n. And now we have all the solutions for number 11. Okay, on 13, I want the angle whose tangent is 1. Look at your trig table. Where does that occur?
Pi over 4.
At x equaling pi over 4. Tangent is a positive in this quadrant because sine and cosine are the same. Where else is the tangent positive? So that could also be what else? 5 pi over 4. And again, if you add a complete revolution, that's adding 2 pi. N.
What is the n?
N is an integer. It's either 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. N is an integer. I used to require people to write n is an element of the integers. But I don't make everybody write that anymore. That's just set notation. For 25, we want to solve on the interval from 0 to 2 pi. So I have to look what angle sine is radical 3 over 2. Anybody know what angle sine is radical 3 over 2?
Cosine.
Pi over 3. The sine of pi over 3 is radical 3 over 2. Sine of pi over 3 is radical 3 over 2. So your angle of 2x has to equal this. Multiplied by 1/2, that gives me pi over 4. Now where else is the sine positive? Over here. 2 pi over 3. So 2x has to equal what else? 2 pi over 3 multiplied by 1/2, and that gives you pi over 3.
Wait, why wouldn't that one be pi over 3? Why is it pi over 2?
I'm sorry?
Why is the first one pi over 2?
No, you're right. The first one should be pi over 3, right? And I think you're absolutely right. And when you multiply by 1/2, you get what? Pi over 6? I think you're right. Now, if I do a complete circle, that's adding 2 pi or 6/3. If you add 6/3 to 1/3, you get 7/3. So 2x would have to equal 7/3 pi. Multiply by 1/2, and you'd have 7/6. I'm still not to 2 pi yet, so I keep going. If I add 6/3 to 2/3, you'd have what? 8/3. 2x has to equal 8/3 pi, multiplied by 1/2, and that makes it 4/3 pi. 4 pi over 3. I'm still not to 2 pi, so I keep going. If I add 6/3 to 7/3, that makes what? 13/3. If 2x equals 13/3, and I multiply by 1/2, that's 13/6. Why don't I use 13/6? It's bigger than 2 pi. So my answers would be these four.